Hi everyone, welcome to Techie World. So as promised in the last video, we are going to perform CRUD operation on the MongoDB using Java and Spring Boot. So let's straight away jump to the topic. Just before that, I just want to tell you something about MongoDB. So MongoDB is an open source NoSQL database. NoSQL means not only SQL, and SQL is basically stands for structured query language. And in the NoSQL database like MongoDB, there are a few layers like in the MySQL database or rather the traditional databases like MySQL and Oracle. You see a database, and then under that database you have the table, and under that table you have the rows and columns, right, where actual data resides. In case of NoSQL database, you have the database. Under the database you will have the collection, and under that collection you will have the data in the form of document. So how that works, we'll see that later in this tutorial. Okay, so let's straight away jump to the topic and let's create a new Spring Starter project. So I'll select Marvin as a build tool. Let's name this project as CRUD demo. Okay, and then let's name it com.techieworld, the group ID, and let's name the package as com.techieworld.crud, com.techie.crud. Okay, so that's all that is required. Yeah, let's go to the next and let's add the dependencies. So we are going to develop the REST API. So we need Spring Web, and I know I want to reduce the boilerplate code. So I need Lombok, and also since we are going to make use of MongoDB database, so we need Spring Data MongoDB. So if you search with the MongoDB, you'll get two dependency. First is Spring Data MongoDB, and other is Spring Data Reactive MongoDB. So you need to select Spring Data MongoDB, not reactive one. Okay, and that's all that is needed. Let's click on next and finish. It will create a project here, and it will import all the dependencies that we added while creating the project. So you can see the structure here. So to configure the MongoDB database, all you need to do is in the properties file, you need to define the MongoDB URL. How to do that? So you need to write spring.data.mongodb.uri. So it is MongoDB URI, and this URI should be coming from the MongoDB. So for that, we'll open MongoDB Compass, and from there we'll copy the URL. Okay, so let's open MongoDB Compass. So MongoDB Compass opened. Okay, so all you need to do is just copy this URL, which we are going to make use of in the properties file. Let's come back to properties file and paste it here. Now you can see here you have MongoDB, that is a database name, localhost where this MongoDB is running, and this is the default port of MongoDB. Okay, if required, you can change it. Now let us add one more thing after the slash, which will be CRUD demo. So whenever you are configuring MongoDB URI in your application or properties file, you need to give the database name. Okay, so this CRUD demo we are going to create in the MongoDB, so that in the CRUD demo we'll be creating the collections. Okay, collections means the data. So let's save this and let's copy this CRUD demo, and we'll go to the MongoDB Compass, and we will create this database inside MongoDB. Okay, so let's open MongoDB Compass. So now we are inside MongoDB Compass, and let us create a new database that we copied from there, from the application.properties. To create a new database, all you need to do is create on this plus icon and then paste CRUD demo, and then you need to provide the collection name. So let us say we are working with the employee, and we'll create a employee, few employee here. Okay, in the MongoDB database. So I am naming the collection as employee, and let's just click on create database. So you can see it has created a CRUD demo and database under which it has created a collection called employee. Now let's go back to our IDE, that is STS. Okay, so to start the development, all we need to do is we need to create few packages. Okay, so let us create first package as controller, and inside that controller I'll create one controller called employee controller, and this controller class should be annotated with the @rest controller. And also let's add one more annotation called request mapping, and let's provide a path like /API/emp. Okay, now let us create the service layer and repository layer. So let's create service first. So we'll create a package called service, and inside the service we'll write one class. I'm not making the interface and then implementing class. I'm directly writing the class. If you wish to write the interface first, then you can do that. So let's make it employee service, and this employee service should be annotated with the stereotype annotation called service coming from Spring Framework. Okay. And now the last thing is, let us create the repository class. And for that, I'm creating a package called repository. Inside the repository, we'll create a new interface called employee repository. Okay. And this repository interface must be annotated with the @repository stereotype annotation. That's it. That is required. Now, the next thing is we are going to create the employee, right? So let us create the model package where we will place our employee model. Okay. So created model, and inside this we'll create one simple Java class called employee. And the employee class, since this data is going to the MongoDB database, so in the case of traditional databases, you used to mark this class as entity and table. In the case of MongoDB, you need to mark this class as document coming from Spring Data MongoDB. Okay. And inside the document, you can provide the name of this document with the tag called value equal to. We need to provide the same name which we gave while creating the collection in the MongoDB Compass. Okay. The next thing is, let's create few fields. Okay. So let's make it private string ID. Then let's make private string employee name. And then let's make it private string location. Okay. And the last field is private. Let's make it big decimal. The salary. That's it. And also we already added the annotation for the lombok. So let's add the data so that it can generate the setters and getters and also the constructors. And apart from that, I'll be adding one more annotation called builder, which I'll tell you why I'm adding when I'll start using it. Okay, so builder from the lombok. Now, what we need to do is, when we define the repository, when we are working with the traditional databases, we actually extend GPA repository or CRUD repository. Here, in case of MongoDB, you need to extend Mongo repository. Okay, so let's come here, type extends Mongo repository. Okay, and here it's the same process which we used to do with the traditional databases. So we need to define the document here, that is employee, and ID we have defined as a string. So do a Control Shift O for the import. And now we are all set to develop our first API. Okay. So let us first create some employee in the database, and then we will try to do other information. Okay. Because CRUD, when we say CRUD means create, then there comes R, that is read, then comes U, that is update, and then comes D, that is delete. So let us do the first thing, that is create employee. Okay. So for that, I'll be writing a method called public, and then we'll be sending some response like employee created successfully, and then we'll write a method called create employee. And here we need to annotate this with the @post mapping. Okay. And also we'll be sending the response status. So let's add response status, and in the status, you need to add http status dot created. This http dot created will actually send 201 code when you hit this API. Okay. So since it's a post mapping, so we'll be taking request body for this. So in the request body, we should be passing an object. So for that, let me create a new package, or rather, let's create a class dot DTO, and we'll create one employee DTO class, and that's it. Yeah, let's finish it. And the employee DTO, rather than making it employee, let's refactor and make it employee TO. It's a transfer object. So in the employee TO, we are going to have all the same fields that we have in the, okay, I created the model also as a employee TO. So let's do a refactor and rename and let it be employee only. Click on finish. Now this is fine, right? Yeah. So in the employee TO, what we need to do is we need to add the annotation, all the same annotation that we added there in the model, except the document. So we'll add data from the Lombok, and then we need builder, okay, from the Lombok, and then we are going to have all the fields here that is available in the model to the TO. Okay. And also I forgot one thing. Since this ID is going to be a unique identifier for this document, okay, So we need to annotate this with ID. Also, let us say this EMP name you want to, when you are saving this to the MongoDB database, you want this name to be something else. So you can do that. I'll just add one annotation called field, and in the field you can name this field as something else. So there's a attribute called name. In the name you can make it employee underscore name. Okay, I'm not adding this field annotation to others. If you are interested in changing the name, you can add it. The purpose of adding this field annotation here is to show you that how it works. Now let's go back to our controller, and in the controller we are going to take the request body as employee TO, and then let us create one method inside the service class which will create the employees, right? Before that, let us auto wire this service into the controller. So we'll do auto wire. Okay, and let's make it private service, and let's make this EL small. And same we are going to do with the repository. So let's auto wire this employee repository into the service class. So let's come here and do at state auto wired, and then we write private, the modifier, then employee repository, and that's it. Yeah, we are done. Now let us create a method in the service class to create the employee into the MongoDB database. Okay, for that, let me write a method called public string create employee, and this create employee gonna be taking the argument as employee TO. So let's add it here, employee TO, employee TO. And then let us try to save this employee into the MongoDB database. So when you're saving this employee to the MongoDB database, actually you need to create the object of this model class, and this model class only can be saved to the database, not this transfer object. So for that, let's write try catch, and inside the try block, what we need to do is let us write our code. So let's create the employee object, employee emp equal to employee. Now, if you remember, I added one annotation here called builder. So why I added this builder? Because whenever I want to build this employee object, I don't need to call multiple setters and getters method to build this object. So we can build it in this way. You can say dot builder, and then all you need to do is provide all the fields. Dot, let us say we want to have name, right? EMP name, and EMP name should be coming from employee TO, right? Employee TO dot get employee name. Similarly, what is the next field? Dot, we have the salary, right? Salary. So it should be coming from employee TO dot get salary, and then we have the location, right? Dot location, and that should be coming from employee TO as well. So employee TO dot get location. Okay, and then you need to call the build method to build this object. Okay, that's it. And then all you need to do is you need to save this employee object which you created EMP into the database. Okay, so for that you need to do employee repository dot. So you can see there are a lot of methods here. Okay, you can see save, wait, and all. So let's make use of save, and in the save there is a two methods called save and save all. Save all actually takes the argument as a list. So if you have the iterable entity like list, then you can use save all, but this time we have just one employee entity, so we'll be taking the save, and in the save we pass the employee object, and that's it, we are done. And then in the return type I have mentioned a string, so let's make it, though that's not a good practice, but yeah, we can write employee created successfully. Let's save it, and let's go back to employee controller. What we are going to do here, it is also returning a string, so let's write the return statement, and in the return statement itself, we'll copy this employee service and we'll call employee service dot create employee, and the employee will pass that EMP, and that's it. We are done. So we have created the API which will create the employee into the collection, MongoDB collection. Okay, make this path as create, and to make it create, let's make use of slash create, and let us start the application, and then we will. So I have already started the application. You can see it is running on the 8080 port. Let us go to the postman to hit this endpoint so that we can see if the employee is being created in the MongoDB database or not. Okay, so let us open the postman. So you can see I have already written the URL and also the payload. Okay, so let us click on send. You can see we got a message called employee created successfully. So let us go to the MongoDB database to verify this. So we are in the MongoDB database. Initially, you can see there is no data. All you need to do is click on this refresh icon, and then you can see the database data is created. Okay, but there is a problem. You created the data, but you can see you are getting only ID and the employee name, not the other fields, right? So let us check what mistake we did. So we are passing employee TO and employee TO, EMP, name, location, and salary is there, right? So here it should be salary, not EMP salary. Okay. It should be only the salary, not EMP salary. Okay. And then Delhi location, EMP name, location, and salary. Let's match it once more. EMP name, location, and salary. This is fine, right? So it was also with the payload. Let us click the send again. It should be creating the full data this time. Okay, created. Let's go to the MongoDB and let us refresh. So this time you can see it has created employee name, salary, but still it is creating problem with the location. I think there is some spelling mistake with the location. Here it is location and in the here it's something else. So let us replace this with the payload and you can see you click here and this time it must be creating the entire data. I mean all the data. So you can see the one that we created right now, we got this data. So now since we already created data into the MongoDB with our create API, let us try to retrieve that data from the MongoDB database. Okay, so let's do that. For that, I'll start writing the get API. So I'll make it get mapping and let's send the response status HTTP status dot okay. It shouldn't be HTTPS, it should be HTTP. Okay, now let us write that method as public and this method should be returning list of the employee, right? Because we may have multiple employee into the MongoDB database. So let's make it list of employee and let's name this method as get employee. Okay, and it shouldn't be taking any argument. And for that, let's do our import. Okay, and now with the same name, let us create this exactly same method into the service layer. So we'll come into the service layer and here just below the create method, we'll paste it here, do a control shift 2 for the list import and then all you need to do is let us try to retrieve the data from the database. So for that I'm writing try catch is there to catch the exception and then done. So let us inside the try block we will try to retrieve the list of employee EMP list from the database and for that we'll make use of employee repository and then in the Mongo repository we have a method called find all. So we'll utilize that and this find all will be returning list of employee and then in the return statement we can return the same list of employee. Okay, so currently it is creating a problem because the scope of this employee list is only the try block and we are trying to use it outside try block. Okay, so let's create a new array list outside the try block. Control shift O for the import and then just remove this. Okay, and then return the employee list. Come to the controller and in the controller we will be making use of this employee service to call this method and since both are returning list of employees so we can directly write return employee service dot get employee and that's all, we are done. Let us start the application and before that let's add the path where we will be hitting the URL. So that path could be get slash employee. Okay, let's save it and start the application and then we'll go to the Postman. So you can see application started at 8080 port successfully. Now let us open the Postman and hit this endpoint. Okay, get employee. Just copy it and let's go to the Postman. And in the Postman, I'll create one more request which will be of get type and I'll copy this URL so that we can do it quickly. Control C, come here and paste just before this endpoint and remove this endpoint called create which is of the previous API. Now let's click on send and once you click on send, it must be returning all the list of employee that we saved into the MongoDB database with the help of previous API. So we clicked and you can see we are getting all the data. If you remember correctly, when we created the data for the first time, we actually didn't mention the location and salary with the exact name. So we are getting null and null. In second case, we missed the location again. And in third case, we have the entire data. So let's go back to our ID. We are already getting all the data with the get API. Now we are left with two more, that is update and delete. So let us write the delete first. So to write the delete API, what I'll do, I'll copy the exactly same API of above paste it here, and here I'll just change the name from get employee to delete employee, and the method name in the service class also will change to delete. Okay, since this delete method is not there, that's why we are getting, and the return type gonna be string, that employee deleted successfully. For that, let us create this delete employee. So we'll make use of ID, click here, and then create method delete employee into the employee service. Just click enter, it will create a method here. Remove this argument, and now let us start writing the code, the logic to delete the data. Okay, I'll write try catch to catch any exception if it is raised, and then in the try block, we'll try to delete the data. Before that, how you're going to delete the data? So you must be providing, and instead of delete get, let's make this URL as delete, and you are deleting an employee based on the ID. So let us add an annotation called request param. Okay, and then let's make it string ID, and this delete employee should be taking this ID as a method argument, and then we will change the same to the here, and it should be taking a string ID as a argument. Now let us start writing the code. So to delete the employee from the database, we are going to make use of employee repository, and there is a beautiful method called delete by ID. So called delete by ID, the last one, and here you provide the ID. That's it. And in the response, it's not a good practice to return the string like this, but yeah, we can say employee deleted successfully. Now let us stop the application and restart it, and then we'll test our delete API. So start as a Spring Boot application. Now since application started at Tomcat port 8080, now let us open the Postman, and we will copy this entire URL. Open another tab, since it's a get mapping, so we'll leave it as it is, and instead of get, we made it delete, right? Delete. Okay, and then we added ID as a request param. So let's provide ID equal to, and let us copy this ID from the MongoDB database. So let us refresh once again, and let's say I'm going to delete this data. Okay, so I copied this ID, come back to Postman and paste it here. So after deleting this ID, you can remember we are deleting 17FA in the end. Okay, so let's click on send. It must be deleting. Yeah, you can see employee deleted successfully. Now just let's go to the MongoDB compass to verify this. We came here, let us click on refresh button, and you can see this employee that we deleted, 17FA, doesn't exist anymore here. 17FB and FC is there. A is already deleted. So now we are done with the delete. Now let us go to the update one. So now we'll try to update one of the employee record that we have here. Let us try to update the last one. Okay, this employee record. And what we are going to do here, we are going to change the employee name, change the city as Noida, and change the salary to the 1 lakh. And the employee name should be something, Jay or something. Okay, so let's go back to our code and start writing the code. So let us start writing the code. For that, I'll be making use of this post mapping. Just copy and paste here, and instead of post mapping, I'm going to make it put mapping, which is a good practice to follow. Okay, and instead of create, we'll make it update, and also instead of create employee, we'll make it update employee, and this is fine. We should be taking employee to as a request body, and instead of create employee, let's make it update employee. Now you can see this is giving an error, so we'll make use of ID to create this update employee method into the service class. Okay, so it is created now. Now let us start writing the core logic, so that we can update the employee into the MongoDB database. Try and catch, and in the try block, to update the employee, what you need actually to update the employee, or in the MongoDB or even in the traditional database, you don't have a separate method. You make use of the same method only. So for that, whatever you are getting in the employee TO, you need to update that into the employee object. Okay, so for that, let us create employee object, employee emp equal to employee dot builder, and then dot employee name. It should be coming from emp dot get employee name, then dot, even before employee name we have one more field, that is ID, right? ID, and emp dot get ID, then employee name, and then there is location, right? Something location. If you remember, it was not location exactly, we made a mistake while spelling it, so It's location. So emp dot get location, and the last one is salary, right? So em dot salary, and here we can write emp dot get sal. Okay, and then we'll call the build method. Okay, and that's it. We created the employee object. Now we have the option to save this employee object with the help of employee repository. Okay, so let's call employee repository dot save, and in the save we'll pass this emp. Okay, that's it. Save. Why it is giving error? Okay, this is a problem. EMPLOY. Let's make it full employee. Okay, and because it's a duplicate variable, and while saving, let's pass this employee. Okay, so now we are all set, and in the return we can just write some random string like employee updated successfully. Yeah, that's all. Let's save it, stop the application, start again, and then we'll hit our endpoint. Spring Boot application started on 8080. Now let's go to the Postman. So to save the time, I have already created the put request here. You can see I have added the URL and also the payload. So payload I copied exactly from here. You can see I have just removed few fields because there is a different structure here. So I just copied the same thing and I changed the employee name to J, location to Noida, or salary to 10,000. Let's make it 1 lakh. And yeah, so this 17FC that you are seeing ID in the database also you can verify 17FC, this one. It should be updated with all the details that we are seeing. So currently it is Techie Delhi and 85,000. So let's come back to our Postman and let's try to hit the endpoint. It's a put request. So let's click on send, and you can see we got a response that employee updated successfully. Let's go to the database to verify this. So click on this refresh icon and you can see this one is updated to Jay, Noida and 1 lakh. This is the same ID 17FC. Okay, so now we are done with all the 4 API that we promised, like create, get, delete and update. So if you want to practice more, then you can update the employee based on the ID, or delete the employee based on the some other field, or try to get some employee based on the some field, like let's get an employee which are having more salary more than 1 lakh. So these kind of practice you can do by your own, and if you found an issue you can comment in the comment section and I'll try to respond to that as soon as possible. So that's all for today. If you want this code shown in this video, then you can comment your email ID and you will receive this within 24 hours. Also, I'll be posting more such informative video on this channel. So if you found this video helpful, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.